Welcome to Schweitzer Drive, a podcast where we explore what goes on between the generation of electricity and the light switch. Join Dave Whitehead as he interviews the entrepreneurs, innovators, and experts who are inventing the future of electric power.
Welcome to Schweitzer Drive. I'm Dave Whitehead, the CEO of Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. For more than 25 years, I've worked on inventing, designing, and building technology to protect, automate, and control electric power systems. And it's really interesting and exciting work. But once you've created something to protect, automate, and control electric power systems, someone has to want to buy that product and put it onto their system. And that's a process that they don't teach you in engineering school. So today, we're talking to Laura Stento, Senior Sales Manager at SEL. The reason I've been looking forward to recording today's podcast is because I'm really interested in the sales process. Specifically, how do you go about teaching or convincing someone to give you their money in exchange for something you've made or a service you'll provide? I believe it has to do with creating and explaining value to someone. So we have Laura here with us. Hi, Laura.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for joining me today. Before we jump into this exciting subject, how about you let the audience know a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the power industry and why?
Okay, well, first of all, great to be here and spend some time with you and explore this concept of value and hopefully shed some light on what I think you're exactly right about. You know, people want to invest in things that are going to help them grow their business and create value for them. So how do we make that translation, right, from what we create and what our really smart engineers do to a product that a customer accepts and invests in? Just as a little bit of background, I've been an engineer now, I guess, for, over 30 years. And, I grew up with a dad who was an auto mechanic. And I loved spending time with him working on cars. I think we spent 2 years once rebuilding a snowmobile so we could, run behind it with our skis in the backyard and just all around fixing things around the house. So when I thought about a career, I felt engineering would be really great for me because I loved learning about how things work, working with my hands. So I went and got a mechanical engineering degree. Once I graduated, I went on a bunch of job interviews and I would see engineers sitting in cubicles doing their work. And I thought, holy cats, I've made a terrible mistake. I don't think I want to sit in a cubicle, and I certainly don't want to just use a pen and a computer to make some widget. I need to be out in the field. I need to be talking to people and making things work. So, from that, I went to be a field engineer for the nuclear power industry. And that's kind of how I got started in this field. And I can tell you 30 years later, there's never a day where I'm not learning something.
So that's really interesting. But as an engineer, as you sort of alluded to, there are a lot of things you could do, from sitting in that cubicle, inventing the next relay, say in our industry, or being out in the field, applying the relay that got designed or invented. But you chose sales. How come sales with all the other opportunities or what have you in the engineering industry?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And I think, I really enjoyed field engineering and construction, and I certainly learned a ton along the way. And I will say, getting an engineering degree and working in this field provides you so many options. But for me, I continued to be curious about how companies themselves worked and how they succeeded. So it was kind of that mix with the technology and the business aspects to it, and how technology could support their success in business. And with that, I continue to have a genuine interest in learning and listening and helping other companies succeed, and our country as a whole. How can we do better? And I will say, along the way, although I did kind of go down this sales route, I did spend other time like learning about project management and taking on that role and working in a service business. So it gave me sort of that broad perspective that I think really helps me today, have that empathy for our customers and what they're doing and learning about what they do and having that background. And I also learned along the way about many aspects of the power system and the utilization of the components that we make protection for today. So be it a breaker, a transformer, a gas turbine, or a motor, understanding and knowing how those components fit into a power system and the challenges that users of that equipment may face kind of helps me understand how they could best apply our technology to protect those items in the system.
Wow, Laura, maybe I'll joke a little bit about it, but you think of a salesperson and maybe the first thing that pops to your mind is a used car salesman trying to, get as much money out of a little old lady as they can. You make the sales industry sound so noble. The desire to help a customer, to help somebody, do their job better. So with that, let's jump into this sales process, or more importantly, I think, as you pointed out, that this idea or this concept of creating value. Ed Schweitzer, who founded SEL, before he started the SEL, was a professor, and Ed often talks about teaching is selling. And how do you see teaching being applied to the work you do with our customers?
Wow, that's a very overarching question. And, although it's a very concise and direct statement, teaching is selling, it's very, very powerful. And in my mind, it means so much to us when it comes to working with customers. First of all, I've always felt that great sales teams don't work really to make their numbers or sales goals. That to me, doesn't lend itself to building a successful business model and a successful relationship with a customer. It's about creating a valuable, high quality product and then making sure you teach and educate how it can be applied to solve problems, not that we have, but that our customers have, right? So it's not about us, it's about them. And then, yes, teaching technology is the base of what we do, but another important aspect is teaching by example. And what do I mean by that? So, one good example that I have is, how we treat our suppliers. And every year we have a supplier conference where we bring folks in to help them understand what it is we're trying to accomplish so they're best in a position to help us and support us in what we do. So we do become, more like partners than just a supplier and a vendor and a purchaser and just that very business relationship that may or may not get you to where you both need to be. So we teach them about our customers, about what we're trying to do in the field. And by teaching them, they can help us. So, a second aspect of teaching. And then finally, being humble and being taught. So our customers teach us every day. And part of my job is actively listening to our customers and bringing that information back to SEL. Because we've got brilliant engineers and so many smart people who are sitting back and thinking about our technology, different things we can do, how we can apply things to help out in the field and in the power system. But they need that connection with what our customers are experiencing. And so I kind of help connect the dots there. And then I thought I only had three things, but I think I have a fourth thing, and that is teaching the power of what's in our devices and what we can do. So a lot of times a customer will purchase something for one function or one area of their power system that they want to improve or improve the efficiency and reliability. But as you start to talk to them and you start to teach them about what information is available from that device and what they can pull back out, it opens their mind and opens the possibilities and it makes sure that you're maximizing that value that they receive. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
That was a great answer, but now I want to follow up on a couple of points, because I think traditionally I have, and I'm probably not unique in this case, is that the sales process is one, it's transactional, right? It is, I'll give you money and you give me a product back. And what you were describing, no, a successful sales process is more of a partnership. It's not a one and done. Rather, we're in this for the long haul. It really is a partnership. It's a relationship. Maybe it's even a better way to say it. And then the other thing that kind of tipped me off or got me thinking was you mentioned listening, right? And when I think about the sales process or something like that is my job is to talk and, to convince the customer. And what really stands out is it's this relationship and this listening, which is almost 180 degrees out of phase on what I would have considered the sales process, if you will. What do you think about those comments?
Absolutely. I mean, it really is more about listening and listening to understand, right? And I think, we all struggle with this, myself included, is making sure that you're not kind of formulating the answers and formulating in your mind, oh, this device has this number of I/O, so it can fit here really well, or physically its size isn't going to fit. Just to stay focused on what the customer is telling you about what they're trying to accomplish, what direction their company is heading, and giving that opportunity to really absorb that information and not talking all that much. I mean, there's certainly an opportunity and the right, time to be able to explain and to teach the technology and to make sure they understand clearly enough about your product so that they're buying the correct solution for themselves. But certainly, I think it's more about listening than talking.
How do you do that, especially if you're an engineer, right? As soon as somebody says, I've got a problem, I think my brain already automatically goes into solution space, and I've already got it solved. I don't even, maybe I don't even know what the full question might be coming from somebody. So how do you, or maybe you force yourself, or what do you do where you actually sit back and you truly listen to somebody?
I'd say it's really hard. And I'll tell you, this happened to me pretty recently where a customer kind of came to me and, we were talking about arc flash and reducing incident energy and making their power system a little bit safer for the employees that were in the facility, and, started talking about numbers and, how do we get this installed and what's your lead time? And, I'm going right down the path with them, right? I'm just answering the question. I'm like, oh gosh, they're going to buy 10 of these. This is going to be awesome. And then I had to stop and think, and I'm like, wait a second. Should we be looking at the bigger picture here? Like, why is this incident energy so high? And is there something else we should be thinking about? Like, are we solving the right problem?
Yeah.
And I stopped the conversation for a little bit, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, we're happy to sell you a lot of devices if that's right. But is there something else we should be looking at? Should we look at your design? Should we talk to your engineering teams and think through, are we getting to the right solution here? And before we do that, before we go charging off and you make this huge investment, let's just take a time out and make sure we're doing the right thing. So I think to answer your question, you gotta stop and take a breath. You gotta catch yourself. Sometimes somebody's gotta put me in check, right? Because I'll get pretty excited too. But we all kind of work together as a team and ask questions and make sure we're going in the right direction.
Well, what now you got to finish the story. What happened to the guy that was or was not going to buy the arc flash system?
Well, they're still going to buy the arc flash system, but we are also going to help them on looking at the bigger picture of their overall design. And is there another way to take improving their safety that extra step?
You probably, by stopping and doing that, you probably got a lot of, thanks from the customer, right? It probably made an impression on him that will carry on beyond just this single sale, right? You're almost becoming a trusted advisor to this person.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes, even stopping and saying, I understand, this is a project you want to do. This is not within our core competency. So if somebody asks you to go kind of step beyond what you do really well, and you take that time to say, we would love to do that, but we know we might not meet your expectations because that's not what we do super well, you earn a lot of respect and again, reinforce that relationship.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, I made an earlier joke in the podcast about salespeople being, what comes to mind is the used car salesman trying to rip off the grandma. But in seriousness, what are some of the misconceptions about sales in general? What are your thoughts there?
I think some of the ones you've mentioned, certainly. But, in general, a lot of people do just think it's about the numbers. It's about the transaction. It's about meeting a monthly or a quarterly or an annual goal. And, regardless of who's in your way, you're going to get that done. And, in our business and in a lot of businesses, that's not what it's about. It's about relationships. It's about human to human interaction. It's about helping other people. It's about putting yourself in their shoes and doing what you believe would be the right thing for their company. And just always kind of thinking of it in that way. That's how I like to approach it. It's also funny, I think, being in a very technologically driven company, earning the respect of your coworkers and kind of helping them understand what sales is about and kind of bringing them along with you in the process.
Excellent. I'm sure every sales meeting you've had has been extremely easy. I would imagine you just walk into the meeting, ask the customer how many of widget X, Y, or Z they want, and they just give you a big order every single time you walk in and do that. Is that right?
Well, no, not really.
All right. So what is one of the most challenging things you've encountered with working with a customer?
I would say it's a customer that you don't have that relationship established with, and that you haven't built that level of trust with them. And maybe I'll back up just for a second. SEL has a very strong relationship with the vast majority of our customers. And in a lot of cases, the behaviors we've exhibited over the years and our warranty policy and how we've supported customers with technical support over time has built that reputation. And so those are, easier relationships to foster and bring forward. But when you're working with somebody a little bit newer who you haven't established that relationship with, and for whatever reason there's a lack of trust or lack of credibility, it's harder to break through. It's harder to build that because you can tell them things, right? You can tell them, oh, we've got a 10-year warranty. You can tell them, we're going to help you if you have an issue with our equipment. But until they experience it and they really live it, it's just words, right? So over time, you've got to kind of build that up. And I think that's difficult. And those are the relationships that are a little bit harder, where they don't trust you. So they don't open up. They don't tell you all the things that you need to know to be successful working together. The other part of that is making sure that they know that, as a representative of SEL, my word and my reputation means a lot to me and how I represent the company. And so the things that I'm going to tell them, they can have trust in, and they can, feel confident that I'll follow through and that I will be a person. I won't say a man, a woman of my word, let's say. And then, communication at times. So much information needs to get passed back and forth for people to understand one another and be successful. And communication at times is hard, right? Especially now, a lot of it is electronic. It's not as much face to face. And if you don't have that communication, trust, respect, those are the difficult and challenging things to manage.
Excellent. The electric space, especially the business we're in, I know from the product development cycle is certainly much longer than the commercial cycle. So comparing an iPhone maybe has a life of say 1 year, whereas a protective relay or other devices we build that go into substations, they could have a life of say 20 or 25 years. So the cycles are really long. So how does that relate then to the process of selling to utilities or other critical infrastructures that are certainly different from many other industries and very different from consumer products? Could you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
I want to make sure I understand your question, and this goes to listening a little bit, I think. Are you kind of asking me, are there different aspects to sales when it comes to a product that does have such a long life?
I was using that as an example because what I'm guessing, and I don't know, that's why I'm trying to ask this question is, do you think that the sales process or how you go about supporting a customer in the utility space is different than, say, certainly if you were selling iPhones or something in a consumer space? And is the sales process or the sales cycle, maybe cycle is not the right word. What are the differences in these various industries? Or maybe it's not different at all. You know, the sales process is delight a customer, and whether it's on a 1-year period or a 20-year period, maybe it's all the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things that I think about being different is the investment a utility is making in their infrastructure. And the fact that, it does have this expected longevity. It also has an aspect to it that involves, transitions and a wide range of training considerations. So when you're working with a customer under those conditions where their infrastructure is very geographically distributed, they've got a workforce that is also distributed that is challenged by working on a lot of different technology that needs to be in place for a long period of time. The simplicity and the ability to help them through those transitions, if they choose to adopt new technology, if they choose to make a transition to a different type of relay. So, for example, when a lot of utilities went from electromechanical relays to digital relays, it wasn't just about let's go install a new piece of equipment. It's very much about how do you train your staff to keep this system up and running, and how do we make sure that everybody out in the field can take on the new skills, and what does it mean for our workforce? What does it mean for how we approach, sending out somebody who's working on communication products versus protection products? Does it have implications for, any labor unions we're working on? So I think there's a part of selling to a utility customer that you have to have that in your mind, and you have to have a little bit of empathy for how they're going to have to roll out new products and services to their staff to be most effective. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. Thank you. So here's a question I've always wanted to ask great salespeople, and you're certainly one of them. Let me step back just a second. You talked a little bit about teaching is selling, and I get this terrible analogy is like you're trying to help your daughter with her homework. Say it's a math problem, and instinctively I know the answer is 4, right? But trying to articulate to her how I got to 4 usually is frustrating for me, and then certainly becomes very, very frustrating for her, right? Because she's trying to learn something new. And we've been developing some really cool technologies like traveling wave that nobody, 4 years ago was banging on our door. It's like, oh, we need a traveling wave relay, or we want a traveling wave fault locator. So when you're selling a solution that's totally new, it requires customers to think totally differently about how they might be able to solve problems they're having. Is there anything unique about how you introduce new paradigm shifting products and services and convey this new unthought of value that the product or the service may provide to a customer?
Oh yeah, for sure. In some ways you've got to double down on teaching, but you can't. It takes time. It's a little bit iterative, right? Like you can't just jump out there and be like, and look at this new device we have, and it can do A, and it can do B and C. You kind of have to kind of plant some seeds along the way and have an opportunity to have a conversation and kind of mention. You talked about the traveling wave technology, and that's one where we can start talking about, the speed associated with the protection and what benefit that could bring. And then maybe another couple weeks go by and you can talk about fault locating, and you kind of plant seeds and you provide information. I think you try not to overwhelm people with too much at one time. And then you step back away from it for a little while and you let the customer think about what's possible. And you listen to some of their problems, and you kind of offer up another potential solution. And the traveling wave relay, I've got a good example of that. We talked about it and we introduced it to one of our customers. and we talked about its fault locating capabilities and just had a conversation. And then we went away for probably 2 months, and we got a phone call, and they said, we'd like you to come in and talk to us a little bit more. We've been thinking about this, and we want to talk to you about a problem we have. So we came back in and we sat down with them, and they shared with us an issue they were having with periodic outages and line faults on the transmission corridor that they've been struggling with for, I think it was 2 years. And they were in trouble with the neighbors because, they keep experiencing outages, and people were unhappy and talking to the Public Utility Commission. And they had tried different ways to solve it. They rebuilt the transmission structure because it went over kind of a marshy area, and they had this kind of feeling that it might be related to birds in some way. So they kept trying different solutions, but they couldn't pinpoint exactly what was happening and what went on. So they said, could your technology potentially help us solve this? And we're like, we think so. And we talked through, the different voltages, the different characteristics of the line, what they were seeing. And we said, well, let's try it. Let's give you some demo equipment, and we'll put it out there, and we'll see how it goes. And sure enough, I think it was maybe 2 weeks later, they called us in and talked to us. And for the first time ever, a customer clapped for us because they were so super excited. They located the problem. It was a result of birds making a big mess on the transmission system. And they could put in some measures to fix what was happening and essentially eliminate those outages for those customers. So it's kind of a long answer to a shorter question, but I think, just providing information a little bit at the right time. And again, that listening aspect to making sure you're connecting between the technology you have and the problems that our customers are experiencing.
One thing that always comes up in the sales the sales process is price. And I've heard sayings like price your product to whatever the market will bear. I've heard profit is the moral justification for taking a risk. What are your thoughts on pricing?
My thoughts on pricing. Again, it goes back to what you mentioned when we kicked this off, and it's value, really. So what value are you providing? With an eye towards competition, right? So we aren't alone. We aren't the only company on the planet that provides protective relaying. So you always have to take that into consideration. But if you've created an exceptional product and you are very focused on making sure that product is a good fit for the solution that your customer needs, pricing becomes naturally, I guess. We want to be partners in profit with our customers. We want to get a reasonable return on our investment, right? So we are in business to make money. We don't want to gouge anyone. We want to make sure we're getting that value, and we keep that relationship going over a very long period of time. I also think, I hate to go back to it again, but I will, the listening piece of it, right? Because if you're working on a transaction and you are clearly hearing the problem that needs to be addressed, you can focus your solution and your product and your price and your packaging and what you're putting together to meet that customer's needs. And I have been involved in transactions where we've missed the mark a little, right? We get really excited about our technology and how super cool it can be and how fast it is. And we didn't listen to the customer who said, it only has to be fast enough to react within this 15-minute demand window so that I don't set a new peak demand and get a higher charge from my utility for this billing period. And we want to go faster than that because we know we can. And our competition doesn't go as far, and we're not as successful as we'd like to be. So we need to kind of keep an eye on making sure we're matching up, meeting expectations, and setting our price and setting our approach correctly.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. One way I've always thought about it is price is almost a secondary thought in the sales cycle. And I'm speaking, say, from my personal experience. If I feel I'm, if the price of a widget is $10, but I feel like I'm getting $100 worth of value out of it, that's a bargain, right? And if I'm solving a problem, nobody else can. It's that's great. Now, price at some point does come into play, but if you feel like you're getting $100 of value and only paying $10, that's a deal, right? And to me,
that's a deal.
If the salesperson can convey that kind of value to me, coming back to our topic, of value. We didn't call this the how to price something or sell something podcast.
Well, and even that total cost of ownership, right? That consideration also, right? If you can have something in place for 20 years, you don't have to touch it. You don't have to repair it. You don't have to send it in because it's broken. I mean, think of the cost of downtime and, taking equipment out of service and having a crew go out there. I mean, you can avoid those things with very high quality product that we pride ourselves in. That has huge value for customers. And, I think about my toaster. I have this super, super expensive toaster, and people are always like, can't believe you spent that much on a toaster. And I'm like, I love this toaster. I've had it for 20 years. It has not broken, and it always makes good toast, right? It's perfect. I don't care what the price was.
Not after 20 years.
Right.
Right. You amortize that over toaster. 20 years. It's probably a free toaster at this point.
I mean, I used to have the little toaster oven. It would fail all the time, and I'd have to get a new one. This one I've had forever.
So Laura, you're an excellent salesperson. And my next question would be is how do you make, another 100 Lauras to, help promote products, sell products, help customers solve their problems. Training a global sales force can be a challenge, I have to imagine. There are lots of ways to do this. One way is with a sales meeting, and I've seen a lot of brochures that says, "Hey, let's go to Vegas to hold your sales meeting." I'm imagining that's not how SEL or you conduct sales meeting. What would you describe our sales meeting process as, and why would it be tradition or different, I guess, from say traditional sales meetings?
Yeah, well, I remember back to my first week that I started at SEL, and it happened to be the week of the sales meeting, and I just happened to be on crutches at the time. And, having come from another company and have had, different sales meeting experiences, I can tell you it was incredibly different. I mean, we spent really learning, right? It was a lot about the SEL experts coming in and teaching us about the new products, the new innovation that they had developed during the year that they wanted, us to really internalize and make sure that we understood it in enough depth to bring it forth to customers, explain it, and represent it well. And it was a lot of great information. I mean, you guys did a lot of work, well, every year, maybe except this year, doing hands-on demonstrations where we could go see and touch and feel, the products themselves. And it wasn't about the numbers. It wasn't about, here's our goal for next year for selling in this geography. It was about how do we learn, how do we understand, and how do we, bring that message to all our customers.
Maybe we should change the sales meeting to the teaching meeting title or something like that.
Meeting. Well, and I think it was a celebration of, it was maybe 30-year celebration of the company, and we finally got to the last day, and it was, the dinner celebration after, and I thought, okay, we're going to, relax. It's going to be, we got to learn more.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, Laura, thank you very much. Before I let you go, though, I have one more question for you. And it's probably too late for me, but any advice for an engineer considering going into sales?
Well, first of all, it's not too late for you because I have seen you work with customers and you do a great job. And again, like, it's not selling, it's not the numbers, it's not forcing someone, it's creating that relationship. So, I'm being sincere when I say that. You've helped us many times. And then, for others who might be thinking of heading in this direction, learn as much as you can, not just about SEL products per se, but start thinking about our industry, thinking about, industrial customers, reaching out to others in the organization who do have customer facing opportunities, talk to them, understand what their days are like and what you can learn from them about the profession to better understand if that's something they want to be involved in. Learn how to feel comfortable speaking in a group, but also learn how to listen effectively.
And that is going to be my takeaway from this podcast is the listening component of trying to delight customers. So next time I'm out visiting a customer with you, I want you to critique me afterwards. And did I do a good job of listening, or did I go right into, I know what the answer is, just do what I say.
Well, and vice versa, right? We'll hold each other accountable.
Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate it. And thanks for spending an afternoon with me talking about sales. I always find it a hugely fascinating topic. I'll argue, at least from my perspective, it is way harder than designing a traveling wave relay. It's that interaction with people and really listening and understanding how to help them do their job.
Well, one of these days we'll swap jobs and we'll see. I bet yours is harder than mine.
Oh, mine's easy. I have great people to work with like you. So thank you, Laura. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for stopping by Schweitzer Drive. Join us again as we learn about, explore, and celebrate electric power. For more information about the show, please visit selinc.com/Schweitzer Drive.